Hi, we're back and we're working on the M51 flow where we have so far created the master LRGB files. We've run Mure denoise on those files, and now we're ready to start working on the luminance. So we open that, and the first thing we're going to need to do is to run some background extraction. So you can use ABE or DBE. Galaxy, sometimes I'll try ABE, but I'm going to run DBE this time. And when I bring it up, I come down here to sample generation. You click on that, expand it. I usually make my sample size fairly big, about 35, 40, somewhere in there, and 7 samples per row, and I do generate. Then I look at some of these that are kind of in the Galaxy. I'll get rid of those. I'll move some of these that are obviously within the Galaxy. We don't want any in there. That looks pretty good. Put one up here. Do a couple down here maybe. I don't know why I didn't pick those. Doesn't like that for some reason. I haven't figured out the, I don't know, maybe there's a tolerance or something that you can use here. Yeah, you can probably up this tolerance if it doesn't accept a sample. So I put one, you can see here I got kind of a star off the frame, field of view, and click that there. I'll move some of these off the edge here where it's not very good. That looks halfway decent. So something like that looks pretty good to me. Maybe put one right there. And we'll call that good. Click the checkbox. And you can do Control A on this and just kind of take a look at the gradient, and then Control A on the image, and compared to what it was, I'm going to call that better. And we're done here. And so now we've done DBE. So the next thing we do is we want to open up the screen transfer function. Now you can come up to Process, All Processes, and Screen Transfer Function. And it brings up the screen transfer function. Now, if you don't want to do that every time, you can grab this, bring it over here. It creates a process icon. You can click on the N and you can change it to STF or something like that and save it like I did over here. Okay, I'll delete this. So you can put these icons and build up a little library that you want. When you're done, or when you have a session, especially if you created new ones, you can come over here and highlight, drag and drop and highlight. Then you right click and do save selected icons, and you can save them. I chose it, you know, PI_icons, whatever you want to call it, and save it. And then when you open up a session, you can just click on this little icon over here, and you can go here and click on PI icons and open, and it will populate your session with these PI icons. So a little divergence there, but I thought you might find that useful. So when you bring up the screen transfer function, you click on the check mark, so it shows you the transfer function for the active window. I want to zoom in here. I use the scroll wheel to zoom in, and this is obviously way overexposed. So I'm going to take this and drag it down just enough. It doesn't really matter. I just want to be able to see what we're doing because I'm going to do deconvolution on this image. So something like that where I can zoom in and just get a feel for what deconvolution is doing to my image. We're clipping it now, but again, we haven't saved this, so this is not permanent. So to run deconvolution, there are several files you need to create first. The first one, there's a script under here, under render, called PSF image. And if I click on that, I can come down here. I usually make my sensitivity started at about 0, and I leave these at the default, and you can select the function that you want, Moffat or Moffat 10. I don't know if it really matters that much. I usually pick Moffat, and then you click evaluate, and it's going to take a look at your image, and it's going to run and evaluate your image, and it's going to create a PSF, which is point spread function of the stars in your image. So it's going to analyze your image and create a point spread function that you can use in the deconvolution process. So it'll run for a while. It's I'll see. It's kind of dragging. I'll pause right here real quickly and come back when this is done. Okay, it's done, and now we have this point spread function, and you need to remember that we just clicked evaluate. You now need to do create, and you can't see it here, but once you're done you click OK, and you move this, and you've got this point spread function PSF, and we'll minimize that and just store it up here. Okay, now the next thing you're going to need is a star mask for some of your larger stars, and usually what I do there is just go to process, all processes, and I go to star mask, and I usually start off and just do the defaults and see what we get. Remember, you don't need a super high quality star mask. You want to make sure that you're protecting some of the larger stars, and there's a de-ringing part of the denoise script that you'll use the script in. And so you let this run and you'll end up with a star mask. There we go. And so you can come here and make this a little bit bigger, and you can, let me bring it over here. One thing you can do is zoom in, and you can take this and drag it over here, star mask, and now it makes them both the same size, and you can put it together, and you can do control page down and blink between the two, and you can see it's picking up some of those stars. I don't know. It might be okay, it might not. Let me see. This. Well, if you don't like that, that might, I don't know if that's going to be good enough. Let me minimize this over here and maybe do the large scale, small scale, growth of small scale. I think maybe increase that. Also, you want to make the smoothness. Oh, okay, I know what I did wrong. We'll get rid of this. My bad. I usually run the smoothness down somewhere around, I don't know, 10 or so, and I forgot to use binarize and aggregate. I click those two, and then I run, and I think you're going to get hopefully a better star mask with those settings. I did increase the small scale structuring, and that might have been a mistake, but I find often in Pixinsight that, you know, sometimes you have to run things more than once. You just kind of dial in what works for your image. It'd be nice to just say, here are the settings, but it doesn't always work that way. So I'll bring this over here. I'll make this size. I'll come over here, make them similar size, put them back together. Again, hold down the control key and then do page down. And you can see it's picking up some of the more brighter stars. Some of those less bright stars it doesn't really care about, and I think that's what you want. So we're going to call this good. If you want, you can blur these a little more. You can come in here to process, all processes, and come down to convolution. the opposite of deconvolution, and you can see that if you bring this over here, it makes this a little bit blurrier. I don't know if that's really necessary, but you can do that if you want to blur your mask a little bit more. And this is called star mask. I sometimes like to call this local underscore support, and you'll probably see why in a little bit. And I'll keep this up here. So now we've got that mask, and the last thing you're going to need is a Decon mask. And what I do here is I make a copy of the image and double click and call it Decon underscore mask, or something that you prefer. Then I'm going to open up the histogram transfer. So again, you can come over to process, all process, under H, and look for histogram transformation, or you can just double click on the icon and bring it up. And then once this is active, you're going to, again, I like to click on this check mark, bring this up here, put it over here. You gotta click this to make it go away, click this to reset it, and you can see that we're clipping here, but basically what you want to do is open up this, again, real-time screen transfer, come over here to the right and start dragging this down, because you basically want to highlight the galaxy, something like that, and your stars, and we'll call that good. So we'll quit out of here and we'll apply that. And again, you don't worry that you've clipped everything. This is a mask now, not a picture. And then you can, usually what I do is I come in here, and again I go to script, process, all processes, and I go to convolution, and I start off at about 3, and I apply that just to blur this a bit. If you want to, you can do it again. Yeah, I think the first one was okay for me. And then quit out of here, and this is now your Decon mask. And so we're going to apply this Decon mask. We're going to come over here to the actual image, and we're going to apply the Decon mask to the image. Okay, and we're going to save this over here, and if I come over here and do mask and show mask, you can see that it is blocking out everything but the stars and the galaxy. And mask, show mask. Then again, for this, for Decon, I'm going to hold down the Alt key and the N key, as in Nancy, and you get this, and I'm going to draw a preview here, and then click on the preview, and we're going to work on that preview. So I'm going to come up here to process, all processes, and deconvolution. So I use the external PSF tab, and here is where you're going to specify that PSF image that was created previously, and click OK. I then do de-ringing, and this local de-ringing, you usually again provide that local support mask that we generated, and click OK. And I start off at about 10. Regularized Richardson Lucy is again what I use, and these settings here are just ones that I've kind of used. I believe I got these from, if I'm not mistaken, from Warren Keller. I took one of his classes. He has forgotten more than I know about Pixinsight, and ever since then I've just kind of used this, at least to begin with. And so these settings look pretty good. Again, the regularized Richardson Lucy, I usually start with iterations of about 10. I click this local de-ringing and add this local support mask that we generated. I apply the Decon mask, and then I apply it to the image and I let it run. Now, okay, it's getting divergence. Not good. Not good at all. So, you can basically come up here and go back, and I'm not sure what's going on here. This is really weird. So let me take a look at this and I'll be right back, see if I can figure out what's going on. Okay, I'm back. I figured it out. These settings down here, I actually did not have the this icon over here has the settings that, again, I got from Warren Keller that have always worked pretty well for me. And as you can see down here, the PSF function needs to be in there. I start out with iterations of 10. I click de-ringing, and then I start off with the defaults in global dark and global bright. I believe those are default. No, they're not. Those are not defaults. These are settings that I think the default here is like 0.1. I then apply the local support mask, and then down here this wavelet regularization. You can see here that these are the settings that seem to, again, I would thank Warren Keller. He came up with these, and so far they've worked for me pretty well. So you can pause here and write these down and use them and see how they work on your images. So once you have this all set up, the mask applied, then you apply it, and again, you'll see this thing go through 10 iterations pretty quick on the preview. And you can come up here to the preview and double click, and you can see that did a pretty good job. You can see the stars don't have ringing, dark rings around it, so that's not bad. Not bad at all. That's pretty good. You know, I would call that good. That's a pretty good job. You know, that's one that I would keep. Now, the other thing that I do, well, once you do that, you have to come up here and apply this to the entire image. Remember, we were just doing it on a preview. You do it on a preview until you get settings that look good, and then you apply it to the entire image. And I may have to pause here again because, again, deconvolution is going to take a little while to run. So I'm going to pause here and be right back when this finishes. Okay, so we've run it. You can come up here and go backwards and forwards and see that we did a pretty good job. Now, another thing I like to do is go back here and make a copy. Make this the same size, and then you can click on this and go forward, since we're going to keep that, and make this the same size. Actually, what I can do is bring this down here, and now it makes it the same size. Oops, I should have done this first and then done that. So this is the copy, and what I'll do is apply the mask to the copy. And generally I go to mask and show the mask. Now what I'll do here is I'll play around. I'll make this say 20, because I'm going to do a run that is probably going to mess up the stars at some point, but I'm going to run it on this image, and we'll be right back. Okay, so I ran this with the iteration set to 20, and if you look at this, you can see that it brought out even more detail here in the galaxy, although I don't know if it's coming through. You're starting to get these black halos around some of the stars. So I'll show you how I use this later. I usually make this copy, and I'm going to save this and use it in Photoshop. So I usually, like I said, I do the iterations 10 that does a nice good job. Doesn't do anything to the stars. You get a nice enhancement here, and then I'll run a second one on a copy that brings out a lot of detail here, but you're not going to like what it. When you start to get the ringing, you've gone too far. So again, I'm going to make 2 of these copies, and I'll show you how I use that later on in Photoshop. So I'm going to save this for now. While I'm going to mask, remove mask. So I'm going to come back here Save that. Come here, mask, remove mask. And we're done with deconvolution. So the next thing we want to do is work on this this image here. We're going to do the stretching and the histogram transformation and get it in nonlinear format. And once that's done, we'll run some TGV denoise on it, and then that's what we'll output to Photoshop. So I'm going to stop here, and that gives you an idea of how I do deconvolution, and hopefully you found this useful, and if you did, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you.